If only sweeping up political problems was this easy. They cleaned up Downing Street this morning in preparation for the arrival of some new ministerial brooms. The Prime Minister returned from early morning meetings in the Commons, where away from the cameras, he'd been firing those deemed to have failed. To allow those he was going to hire to parade their way past the cameras and through the door of number 10.
Mr. Hunt, do you know what job you've got?
His answer was health. Many Westminster watchers had predicted the sack for the former Culture Secretary, but Jeremy Hunt's been rewarded for his handling of the Olympics.
A huge task. It's the biggest privilege of my life. I'm incredibly honoured and very much looking forward to getting on with the job.
Most prominent of the Cabinet's new recruits, Chris Grayling, who becomes Justice Secretary.
It's a lovely day for a stroll along Whitehall.
Are you going to meet with the Prime Minister?
As I say, it's a beautiful day for a stroll along Whitehall.
Picked, you might be surprised to learn, for his communication skills. Oh, and for the fact he's a Tory tough guy on prisons and human rights.
As I say, it's a lovely day for a walk along Whitehall.
Another surprise new face is Patrick McLaughlin,
Your head's spinning a bit.
the former government chief whip, now the new Transport Secretary.
This reshuffle is about looking to the future. It's about building on our reforms, focusing on delivery and bringing forward the next generation.
After 2 years of scarcely moving a minister, the Prime Minister today shuffled more than half his cabinet pack. He concentrated on the Tory rather than the Lib Dem part of the coalition. Andrew Lansley, architect of the NHS changes in England, is moved to become leader of the Commons. He's replaced by a man whose job it is now to sell them. The government has failed to persuade health service staff of the case for change. Now, Jeremy Hunt, once in the firing line for his handling of the Murdoch bid for B-Sky B, gets the job of winning them back. Ken Clarke loses his job as Justice Secretary. He can still attend Cabinet, but as Minister without portfolio. His job was meant to go to Ian Duncan-Smith, but he turned it down to stay in charge of welfare. Lucky for the man who got today's big promotion. Clarke warned his colleagues against filling the prisons, partly because of the cost. But a few years back, this is what the new Justice Secretary, Chris Grayling, told the Tory conference about crime.
People think our criminal justice system is broken, worrying too much about the criminals and not enough about the justice.
The woman who was made Transport Secretary less than a year ago, Justine Greening, is shifted to international development. She's now replaced by a man who doesn't share her very public opposition to expanding Heathrow. Patrick McLaughlin is a plain-speaking former miner from the Midlands, nowhere near those controversial airports. That change was bitterly condemned by Tory Mayor of London, Boris Johnson. He issued a statement today saying there can only be one reason to move her, and that is to expand Heathrow Airport. We will fight this all the way. The hiring the government are keenest to proclaim is the man who helped build the Olympics and bring it in on time and on budget. LOCOG Chief Executive Paul Dighton, a former banker, joins the Treasury as Minister for Infrastructure and Economic Delivery.
It's always a joy to manage high-class problems.
Despite all these changes, the top of the Cabinet looks just the same. The Chancellor, Foreign, Home, Defence, Education and Welfare Secretaries all kept their jobs, as did all the Liberal Democrat Cabinet Ministers.
Good to welcome David back into government.
Back, though not at the top table, is the man who resigned over his expenses 2 years ago, Nick Clegg's favourite David Laws, who becomes Schools Minister.
Well, the government can change the faces all they like. It's the policies that need to change. There's no change in the economic direction, no change on the reorganisation of the NHS.
Delivery. That's what the Prime Minister says that his changes are all about. Of course, every solution delivered brings with it a potential political problem. Nick Robinson, BBC News, Westminster.